Mia's well-placed kick in Sion's butt averted him from becoming the Penal King after Tearmoon's fall. Mia earned Sion's gratefulness for a profound lesson about justice, mercy, and responsibility, while Mia mistakenly thought she created a monster. The group learned that Chancellor Donovan is being held somewhere in Senia. Mia suggests recruiting Lynsha, the sister of the rebel leader, as a guide. Abel once again misinterprets Mia's action as a brilliant attempt to create a path toward redemption for the rebels and reduce the severity of their eventual punishment. Sion also reveals that intelligence exposing the wing crows came from Monica Buendia, one of Sunkland's agents. With the conspiracy exposed and Donovan location narrowed, a small rescue party consisting of Mia, Anne, Sion, Abel, Keithwood, and Dion sets out to save the Chancellor. In downtown Senia, where the wealthier folks resided, there was a large and well-furnished manor once occupied by an affluent merchant. Chancellor Donovan was being held in its basement. All things considered, he was being treated fairly well. His captors had afforded him some comforts given his advanced age. Granted, no matter how well he was treated, he'd still rather be free.
So, have you decided you want to cooperate with us yet? Seriously, I don't get you, old man. It's not like you've got any family. If you really care about the masses, is now the time for you to take a stand? I do not believe His Majesty has made an irreparable mistake. So as long as I have concerns, I will continue to voice them, but voicing them will be all that I do. Regicide will only intensify the chaos and worsen the people's suffering.
Why don't you take the throne for yourself then? You know what needs to be done. And it's safer to do it yourself? Come on. You can tell me that thought has never crossed your mind.
To stand at the top of a nation was something that all nobles and politicians had dreamed of at one time or another. Desiev's reply, however, was a curt shake of the head.
Enough. Do you expect me to heed your words when you have not even given me your name? Eh? I didn't? I'm pretty sure I told you back when we first met. I'm Jem. You think I'm a fool?
It was the most common name in this area. So prevalent was its usage that people who didn't introduce themselves were referred to as nameless gems. Dasiev highly doubted this was this man's real name.
Begone. Your poor attempts are futile. I am too old to be wooed by strangers. All right, whatever you said, but let me be clear. Even my patience has its limit. Curse, geezer. He's really starting to get on my nerves. I'd have killed him 5 times over if it wasn't for... Graham! That bastard! He needs to hurry up and find the right person.
With the combat training he had received as a wing crow, it would have been trivially easy to kill Donovan. And that had indeed been the original plan, but there had been a change in circumstances. The problem was that, unlike his counterpart in Tearmoon, Chancellor Donovan did not have a Tiona equivalent. He had no children, and his wife had passed away long ago. His surviving relatives were all old and faithfully subordinate to the king, and none of them would ever consider rebellion. There was no one who could take real advantage of the pretext of revenge that would come from Donovan's death. They were missing the next link in the chain. Lambert was undeniably a natural orator. After some instruction from Jem, he was even displaying some competence in cold reading. Such tricks, however, were ultimately child's play. Stirring up emotions in people was a fundamentally trivial task. One needs to know only what the other party wants to hear, and then just push them in the desired direction. A string of pleasing words, music to their ears, mixed with a few poisonous chords was enough. He had manipulated many people with this method, ranging from Remna's underground revolutionaries to Sunkland's wing crows. But it still wasn't enough. in order for the revolution to succeed, there needed to be a single target for the rider's seal to focus on.
Had everything gone according to plan, it'd be time to start inciting chaos in the Empire now. That meddling wench.
It was all the fault of the great wisdom of the Empire. Because of her, they were completely underprepared and critically short on time. And he'd been forced to rewrite the script. The new plan was supposed to start with Lambert's revolutionary army rescuing Chancellor Donovan. The Chancellor would then join their cause, and together they would lead the revolting masses in a series of insurgent events while simultaneously denouncing the monarchy for its sins. That's why he'd been holding Donovan here in Senia. He'd figured that if he managed to convince the old man, he could still salvage his original scenario.
And then there's that idiot.
He wanted to wait until he converted Donovan to their side before beginning the revolts, but Lambert had gone and kicked off an uprising of his own. Though the young upstart's knack for persuasive speech and manipulation were normally a boon, those traits would become a serious nuisance if he started going off half-cooked.
It looked like I chose the wrong person for the job after all. I was only intending to hold on to him as a backup, but I have to say, it sure ain't fun being pressed for time.
He pulled a book of his own pocket. It had a jet black cover and exuded an eerie air.
The great wisdom of the Empire, Mia Luna Tearmoon. I hear she's a friend of Rafina or Cavaluga. It better not be that woman pulling the strings.
He ran his finger along the book's cover. As he did, a faint mark appeared on the surface, its shape uncannily serpentine.
The Empire's collapse tips the first domino in a cascading ripple that will topple nations after nation until all have fallen, and the destruction of order gives rise to chaos. That's our life goal, as well as our dying wish, and I will not allow it to be thwarted.
He continued contemplating how to persuade Chancellor Donovan as he disappeared down the corridor. Little did he know that a great collapse was indeed imminent, only it would not be that of nations, but his plan, and it would take the form of a young girl. The countdown had begun. Mia was incoming. As Mia expected, Lynsha knew where the manor in question was located.
I think the place used to belong to the merchant or something, but I don't remember the revolutionaries ever using it.
Her statement made it seem more likely than ever that the manor was the building they were looking for. The fact that the revolutionaries had heard no mention of it could, in a way, be taken as a proof of its significance. A mob of amateurs would not be trusted with such important information. After being filled in by Mia, Lynsha quickly agreed to lead the way for them. As they prepared to leave, however, Mia was surprised to discover a pensive Lynsha staring at her.
Is there something on my face? No, it's just that I never thought you'd actually try to stop this conflict. I mean, you look like... Like what? Never mind, let's go. Is it just me or was she about to say something terribly rude?
Mia, in fact, was pretty sure she did mind, but she dwelled on it only for a moment before she had to hurry up to catch up to the ever-receding figure of her guide. A harsh silence had fallen over Senia, but for the occasional scurrying passerby, its streets were completely deserted. Well, that's not good. With the place this empty, every damn pair of eyes is going to be on us.
There's not much we can do about that. Nobody wants to get dragged into a needless conflict,
Lynsha said before turning into a narrow alley. She rounded a few more corners before exclaiming,
"There!"
The group looked where she was pointing and saw a large manor situated on an even larger yard. Unfortunately, there were no trees or shrubbery big enough to offer them cover.
What should we do? We can wait until it's dark, but...
As though on cue, their surroundings began to dim, prompting Mia to look up at the sky. Her eyes grew distant.
My, how fast they went! It's already...
Dusk had crept up on them, and the horizon had begun to burn red. The sun, just like that fateful day, had begun to bleed. Voices echoed in her ears. Images swam before her eyes. Once again, she was walking up those steps, her heart withering under the hate-filled gazes of her people. The loneliness returned.
I don't like this place. Something is just terrible.
Whoever was responsible for the pain she suffered, they were in that building. The thought made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. She rubbed her arms, but she couldn't seem to remove the invisible layer of frost that had settled on her skin. Are you scared, Mia?
Eh?
She turned reflexively and her eyes met Abel's. He studied her with an expression of sober concern.
Oh, Abel, it's you. No, I'm fine.
She shook her head. It wasn't fear. It's just that the scene felt familiar, and it reminded her of her past. It was all in her head. She just had to put it out of her mind. Her reply, however, did not dissuade Abel, who held her gaze and gently placed his hand on hers. It took a second for a sudden gesture to register, but when it did, she flinched so hard her feet almost left the ground.
Huh?
What? Whatever it was had been gripping her heart, past shades or future specters, they were gone now. The dread they embodied shattered into a million faded fragments that vanished in the breeze. The warmth he radiated and the tender sensation of her hand enveloping his brought forth an enchanted sign from her lips. Sorry, my, mother. She used to hold my hand like this, and it helped me relax, so... The tip of his nose glowed a faint shade of pink, and he spoke with the tone of someone trying to explain away a particularly embarrassing moment.
I see. I very much appreciate your consideration, Abel.
Clearly overwhelmed, her voice cracked a little, and she spoke with what could be charitably be called an unconventional use of vibrato. To put things into context, in case anyone was losing sight of the situation, all they did was hold hands. That was it. For all her boasting, when put on the spot, Mia was fundamentally still an innocent young maiden. Hey, you two, is something wrong?
Hey, things were just getting good too.
She mentally grumbled, pointedly ignoring what felt suspiciously like a wave of relief washing over her. After all, actual romance was way out of her comfort zone, and her chicken heart was soon squawking up a storm. All of this from what was more or less an affectionate handshake. I get this is all very necessary to keep the empire going, but please, my dear princess, time and place. We're in public. Besides, isn't it too early to be making heirs?
What? We just held hands. You can make babies by holding hands, I think.
For what was a biological impossibility, Mia didn't sound very confident. Instead, Anne stepped in front of her, as though shielding her from Dion's teasing.
Sir Dion, please refrain from amusing yourself at Her Highness's expense.
Between Ludwig and you, it's like the princess has a pair of overprotective nannies. Mia glared at Dion, who didn't appear the least bit repentant. Her expression, however, soon softened. She looked back to the sky, then at her companions. It was the same ominous sunset, the same crimson sky, but she wasn't alone. And that made all the difference. She had Abel, she had Sion, she had Keithwood and Dion. She had her loyal subjects, Anne near and Ludwig afar. And she even had an ex-arch-nemesis in Tiona. They were there for her, so she took a deep breath and nodded.
It's okay. I can do this. I know we can.
Lynsha alone wore an exasperated expression as she regarded the merry band she brought with her.
Hey, are any of you going to, hide or something?
My name is Sion Sunkland, and I am speaking to all those currently inside this manor. You are to drop your weapons and present yourselves at once. The White Crow's plot has been exposed. You have no more reason to fight. So much for an incognito operation, huh? With that out of the window, Lynsha pressed a palm to her face. Even Mia hadn't expected him to announce the arrival. But it happened, just like that.
Are we really going to be okay like this?
Feeling a growing sense of uncertainty, she gave Dion an inquiring look, who shrugged indifferently in response. Hard to say if any of them will actually do as he said, but it'll probably plant some doubt in their minds. Alright then, fellow companions whose lives are all worth a hell a lot more than mine. For your safety, please refrain from placing yourself in front of me. It makes it difficult for me to protect you when I have to chop through you to get to my opponents. They decided to split in two groups. The first, composed of Sion, Dion, Abel, and Mia, would enter the manor from the front. Needless to say, while Anne might still make herself useful, in some way, Mia was just inflating the headcount. Meanwhile, Lynsha and Keithwood would sneak in through the back. Alright, let's get this party started. Dion's sword flashed in an arc, and he stepped through the now defunct door. Finding the interior exceedingly dim, he opened the eye he'd kept closed and scanned the surroundings. It was a trick he used to maintain vision when entering a dark place, and it worked. The sound of a metallic impact came a split second later. A blaze shot out a dark corner behind him, and he caught it with his own before smirking. You had to do a lot better than that if you want to surprise me. It actually had been perfect. Launched from his blind side under the cover of darkness, nonetheless, it failed to have its intended effect. He didn't even flinch. Instead, he shrugged. I swear, you spies can be such wannabe assassins sometimes. What? You think I had trouble swinging a sword around in a small space? Or what? You get me before my eyes could adjust to darkness? Points to effort, I guess, but such a weak trust, I could have stopped it even with my eyes closed. Very disappointing. I blame the adamantine stick for getting my hopes up. He wrapped his fingers around the offending arms and squeezed. There was a crunching sound and the man's face twisted with pain. Dion leaned in, bringing their faces so close that they almost touched, and flashed him a smile with plenty of teeth. By the way, I should mention that Prince Sion is with us, just in case, well, you know, somehow didn't hear him when he was shouting his lungs out at you. The man's eyes darted to the door just as Sion stepped in, and recognition flickered in his eyes. Dion smiled and spoke in a tone that was almost gentle. Look, this whole scheme thing you white squawkers have got going, it's pretty much totally out in the open now, so you might want to reconsider if it's really worth giving your life for, he said before driving his foot into the man's gut, causing him to crumple to the ground. He stomped on his arm and pointed his sword at the man's nose before snarling. Of course, if you prefer to be a martyr, then I'd be more than happy to oblige you. Then he retraced his vicious attitude and lazily slung his sword back over his shoulder. Just surrender, okay? And tell all your buddies to do so too. I'd rather avoid unnecessary bloodshed.
My, what a surprise, Captain Dion. I thought you loved fighting.
Come on, princess. Even I have standards. I like fighting, not bullying. The skill gap can only get so big before it becomes sadistic. Bring me another guy like that adamantine stick though, and I'll happily go another dozen rounds with him. He answered before glancing at his grounded assailant with brutal disdain. That one look was enough to shatter the last vestige of the man's resolve. The Rome prince stood opposed to their cause, and they faced a warrior far too strong for them to handle. Each hurdle was high enough in its own right, but combined, they presented an insurmountable wall. After surrendering, the man was instructed to light all the lamps in the manor, which he promptly did. Sion, illuminated in all his princely glory, scanned the room into which men were slowly trickling, their hands up and weapons discarded. Mia breathed a sigh of relief.
Well, it looks like things will actually work out after all.
Anne, who was similarly suited by the dissipating tension, found herself sufficiently composed to give Mia the good old maid once over.
Milady, your hair seems to have lost some of its luster. Ah, you notice? It's actually because the shampoo I've been using is rather unimpressive. The one I got from Abel felt a little more moisturizing. Fear not, milady.
And reached into the inner pocket and dug around for a bit before producing a small bottle.
See? I made sure to bring some for you. How terribly thoughtful of you, Anne. What would I do without you?
Mia took the bottle from Anne, held it up like a trophy, and broke out into a delighted sequence of skips and trills. Then she committed the unspeakable.
When this battle is over, I'm going to soak in a bath to my heart's content.
In war, the last thing you should ever talk to about is what you're going to do when it's over. So, cosmic karma did its thing.
Oh, I can already imagine how wonderful it's going to...
Eh? Her last twirl didn't seem to end. Where firm ground should have been to catch her landing, she found nothing but the gaping mouth and illuminated stairway. She tumbled down the stairs into the dark underground. The world turned into a dizzying spiral. She fell and fell until a hard thud, along with a crack of something fragile being shattered, signaled the end of her descent.
I feel so sick.
Suddenly, she noticed the presence of another person.
Well. If it isn't Her Highness Princess Mia, it's an honor to be graced by your presence.
The man who went by the name of Jem was looking down at her with a wide, wolfish grin.
Who are you?
Ha. I hardly have the audacity to sully the ears of the great wisdom of the Empire with the name of one so lowly as myself.
Mia, are you okay? The two princes rushed down the stairs, Anne and Dion right on their heels. Are you Jem?
Judging by the fact that you know my name, I assume you're already aware of the White Crow's plan.
That's right. Your scheme has been laid bare. Your friends have all surrendered. I suggest you follow their example.
Friends, huh? Speaking of which, that reminds me of Graham. I almost pity him. That miserable bastard. A man whose loyalty to his kingdom proved too spicy for the delicate palate of his young, fastidious prince.
Suddenly, they heard a new voice from even further down the underground passage. Give it up, man. It's over. They say Donovan is safe. You're the only one left. Keithwood appeared from the shadows beyond with his characteristic nonchalance.
Ah, come on. You even found a secret underground escape route? Prince Sion's one thing, but it looked like even his attendant reputation is well earned.
Sion was blocking the stairs. Waiting farther down the passage was Keithwood. Standing between them was Jem. And in the midst of it all, trying her best to sneak away unnoticed, was Mia.
This is my chance. I need to get out of here.
With slow, unconspicuous movements, she turned and began shuffling away, only to feel something cold and metallic at her cheek. She gasped and straightened the motion, almost lifting her off the ground. The sensation of an unsheathed sword on her skin summoned a flood of memories that ended with a heavy, heartless weight of a falling blade.
Don't get smart on me now. It doesn't take much to cut through that slim little neck of yours.
Mia nodded with a psychopathic seal, stammering out a string of babble meant to convey obedience before a menacing groan from Jem caused her to shut up for good. She stood completely still, daring only to blink her eyes every few seconds. Don't do anything stupid. Sunkland won back the wing crows, white or black. Your scheme has already failed. It's over.
Whoa. So harsh. Your Highness, all those hurtful words from you might just cause my hand to slip. You wouldn't want the princess' head to roll now, would you?
Jem tapped his sword on Mia's shoulder to illustrate his point.
I've got a lot of pent-up stress from having my plans ruined by this little girl after all. You might not want to push my buttons.
Mia whimpered and tried to lean away from the blade, but she went a bit too far and almost lost her balance. When she put a foot out to steady herself, it landed with a conspicuous splash, followed by the unmistakable sound of liquid steadily dripping into a puddle. Jem stared down at her for a second. Then his lips curled up into a profoundly mocking grin. At the end of the day, the great wisdom of the Empire is just a pathetic little girl. Every last pair of eyes was now focused on Mia, especially her skirt, which was wet. There was no doubt in any of their minds that, tragically, she'd soiled herself in her terror. Any of their minds, except Anne's. Mia's first and most faithful subject immediately figured out what had happened.
No, this smell. It's...
A floral fragrance tickled her nose, one that was surprisingly familiar, as it frequently drifted from her dear mistress' hair.
The one I got from Abel felt a little more moisturizing.
She recalled Mia saying that particular shampoo, containing what must be a more oleaginous blend of ingredients, had an oilier texture than most others. The logical corollary of this fact was, of course,
"Milady, run!"
Anne's sudden cry pierced the silence like a clap of thunder. Everyone froze, everyone except Mia, whose unshakable trust in her confidant caused her muscles to move on reflex. Time slowed to a crawl as Mia, the sole human actor on the stage of wooden mannequins, shifted her weight onto one leg as she readied herself to dash. Then, the pause ended and everything sped back up.
You little wench!
Jem reacted first. Seeing that Mia was trying to escape, he raised his sword, his rage and hatred for the great wisdom of the Empire flaring in his eyes, put all his malice into a vicious horizontal swing at her neck. Should the blade find its mark, it would surely rend her delicate skin, sever her slender muscle, and slice straight through her spine. Only, as Mia pushed down with her leg in an attempt to bolt, her foot slammed into the ground and kept going. It had met with surprisingly little resistance, and the excess momentum caused the entire leg to be flung out behind her. The sudden motion produced by her shampoo-soaked shoes was beyond the ability of an even trained fighter to predict. Her legs flew out from under her as her body lurched forward. Something switched sharply by, mere inches from her head.
Yeah!
She fell in a rather unflattering fashion with a loud yelp, but no one faulted her for it.
You die!
Jem dove toward her, sword primed to thrust, but he too stepped in the puddle of shampoo and suffered its wrath. It launched his left forward, causing the rest of him to topple backwards. His sword landed on the ground out of his reach.
"Milady, this way! Hurry!"
A wild mass of screams and flailing limbs. Mia shrugged desperately to get back on her feet and reach Anne, only to slip once again. Her back leg flew upward in an arc. Standing behind her was Jem, back on his feet and dashing at her with his arm outstretched.
Damn kid! Wait until I get my hands on you!
It was the most unfortunate of coincidences, caused by two people in the wrong place at the wrong time. Mia's heel, which was on an upward trajectory, just so happened to be at the exact height to make contact with Jem's book. Nope, this is a PG audiobook, for the most part. Let's just say that the exact spot shall remain unmentioned. Suffice to say, though, she kicked him in a place where the moon doesn't shine. With a long, agonized groan, Jem fell to his knees, both hands grasping spasmodically at the location of impact. Dion walked over, his sword drawn but ultimately unneeded. Huh. You know, the last thing I would have expected is for the princess to finish you off herself. Thus fell one of the incident's main conspirators, Jem, to the brilliant footwork of the great wisdom of the Empire, Mia Luna Tearmoon, who shattered his elaborate scheme, and then some, with one brutally well-placed kick.
is it for this video. We will continue with the story of the Guillotine Princess on the next episode. This is Marco the Vera Mexican with Jobless Weeks. Matanem!